for more on the 10-year anniversary of the Walker Cup and that 2007 year. Let's bring in Sports Illustrated senior writer Alan Shipnuck and via Skype Golf Magazine's Joe Passoff. And guys, this was quite the list of talented players, especially when you go down the American roster. Alan, when you looked at that team, often known as the dream team of Walker Cups, how special was this group, top to bottom of talent?
There was a lot of blue chip prospects. We knew that guys had done great things at the amateur game and looked to be very strong pros. And as time goes on, the team looks better and better. They're winning major championships. They're getting to #1 in the world ranking. So at the time, it was a special group, and I think over time, it takes on even more weight as the accomplishments just pile up.
Joe, let me bring you in here and ask you about this U.S. roster, the depth, the talent, the major winners. Could this have been the greatest Walker Cup team ever assembled?
Well, I've looked back through the history books, and it most definitely could be the greatest Walker Cup team ever assembled. The previous vote had gone to the 1959 team that had Jack Nicklaus just killing it. He won all his matches. But for these guys in the 2007 team, I think it's as strong as anything ever assembled.
Alan, knowing some of these players now as professionals, getting to know their personalities, what must the dynamic have been like with guys like Ricky and Dustin, Colton Nost on this team as well? Quite the cast of characters on the U.S. Walker Cup team.
Yeah, a lot of big personalities, and there was a juicy little spat where Rory McIlroy called out Billy Horschel for being obnoxious. That added to the whole kind of feeling of the event. I mean, these were not wallflowers. These guys came in thinking on both sides, thinking they were the best, and so that Walker Cup had an edge, which that's what makes these things memorable. You need some bad blood to really elevate these events. I mean, they're supposed to be goodwill matches, but when it gets a little heated and a little nasty, that makes it more fun for everybody, I think.
Joe, let me ask you about Rory. He looked a little different. He had the bushy hair back then, a little pudgier in the face, a young Rory McIlroy. Little did we know what he would turn into. 4 major championships since that 2007 Walker Cup. Do you remember watching him and recognizing the talent that he was going to become back then?
Well, he had just come off an amazing performance in Ireland. He set the course record at Royal Portrush with a 61 as a 16-year-old. So those of us who read the agate print in the various publications then knew of this guy's talent and knew that even at that young age, he was a stud on this team.
He was a very good amateur. When you talk about Rory, that also added to the spiciness of this whole event because it was in Northern Ireland and he had the weight of the country and the whole continent on his shoulders. And there's a great moment at that Walker Cup where he's playing opening matches with Dustin Johnson and Rory hits a great drive and the crowd goes crazy. And then Dustin steps up, he hits a drive, and then people just jump back like a bomb had gone off. They walked that drive off at 403 yards, and that was just one moment among many. But, Rory had a lot to prove, he had a lot to play for, but certainly a guy like Dustin wasn't going to give him an inch, and I remember that moment particularly.
Yeah, tremendous length. DJ and Rory off the tee. Joe, let me talk to you about the 2017 Walker Cup going to LA Country Club. A lot of changes have been made to the golf course architecturally. What can the Walker Cup expect, and how do you think some of the changes will affect match play down the stretch in 2017?
I honestly think Los Angeles Country Club could be one of the greatest venues that they've ever had for this tournament. And that includes Pine Valley, that includes Cypress Point. What you have is an underappreciated genius in the architect George Thomas. He did Bel Air, he did Riviera, and LA was always considered an excellent course, just really, really low-key, private. They hadn't hosted any national tournaments of significance since 1954, and it's time finally for its close-up. What you're going to see is a Gil Hanse restoration that our panelists on our Top 100 panel have called perhaps the greatest restoration they've ever seen. You've got super meaty par 4s, you've got some little bitty par 3s, some drivable par 4s, and some reachable par 5s. It's going to be an incredible test.
Sports Illustrated's Alan Shipnuck, Golf Magazine's Joe Passoff. Thanks for being with us, guys. 10-year anniversary of that dream team from the 2007 Walker Cup.